Hey listeners, join me for Jolt, the marketing conference for financial professionals by Snappy Kraken at the Aria Resort in Las Vegas, beginning on Wednesday, October 20th to Friday, October 22nd. 5 keynote presentations, 21 educational sessions, amazing marketers and speakers like Snappy Kraken's CEO Robert Sofia, Adobe's Adam Morgan, futurist Katerina Walter, and more. You won't find a better Las Vegas experience than this. Register now at joltconference.com and I will see you there.
Hi, this is Tina Powell, host of In the Suite, where I sit down with top women leaders and some of the biggest names in the financial services and the wealth management industry. Together, we'll discover some of their best secrets and top strategies to grow great business, build a strong brand, and lead teams in the 21st century. I hope you'll enjoy hearing their amazing personal stories of triumph, trepidation, and transformation in hopes of becoming better leaders ourselves. The time for you to lead is now, and you're in the suite.
Meet Diana Cabrices, the Vice President of Enterprise Development at Snappy Kraken, an award-winning automated growth program for financial advisors which provides marketing automation, online advertising, and bold, unique marketing for financial professionals. Diana works with thousands of well-known advisory firms at Snappy Kraken on marketing support, succession planning, and M&A recruiting. Her goal is to empower financial advisors with the most effective modern marketing tools and information to scale effortlessly through Snappy Kraken's marketing platform. While some companies fell into disarray during the pandemic, other companies like Snappy Kraken, a 100% remote company, thrived. In today's episode, Diana shares with us her positive experience of working for a remote company and shares valuable tips on how businesses can be formed successfully in a virtual environment. Diana also gives us tips on how to keep the work culture alive and flourishing. Diana is also a first-generation Cuban Venezuelan American with a commitment to empowering women in sales. She encourages women to be proud of where they've come from and emphasizes the importance of not being afraid to ask for opportunities. Her proactive approach has led to the position where she is today, and she hopes that other women will replicate her attitude. In fact, one of the many gifts you'll discover about Diana Cabrices in this episode is the enormity of her heart. Diana is a certified doula, a trained professional who provides continuous physical, emotional, and informational support to a mother before, during, and shortly after childbirth to help her achieve the healthiest, most satisfying experience possible. Diana's example of compassion and care as a doula demonstrates the true meaning of being kind and nurturing in the suite. Wow, Diana Cabrices, welcome to In the Suite. Take a seat in the suite. It is so great to see you today. How are you?
It's so great to see you too, Tina. I am fabulous. I couldn't be better if I'm being honest with you, and we'll dive into some of that, but I'm honored and super excited to be in the suite with you. So thank you so much for having me.
Great. Well, one of the reasons that I wanted to have you in the suite is that number one, you and I have known each other for many years. I'm excited that we are going back towards conferences. And that was the last time I saw you a year ago at T3.
Oh, yeah.
And exciting news from Snappy Kraken is happening. And one of the other modern themes that we've been dealing with in the suite has to do with reverse mentoring and different generations being relevant to other generations and the tools and the techniques. And I feel like the world is just changing right now. And to get insights from someone like you, Diana Cabrices, over at Snappy Kraken, I think this is going to be an amazing episode.
Yes. I so appreciate that about you, Tina, that you are trying to sort of bridge the gap and connect different generations in financial services. I think that we have a lot of perspectives that we could really share and learn from. So I can't wait to dive in with you.
Great. So it just so happened, and this happens all the time in the suite here. We pick a date, and that date was set like 4 months ago. And then the week that we have the recording, some exciting piece of news breaks. It happens every single time. I cannot believe it. And so this week I saw that Snappy Kraken came out with some really big news. And if you could, for our listening audience, because they're like, yeah, Snappy Kraken, like if you could just, number one, tell the audience who Snappy Kraken is and discuss the big news. Congratulations, by the way, to you, Robert, Sophia, everyone at Snappy Kraken.
Thanks, Tina. We're really excited about the big news. So I'll start with who Snappy Kraken is, and then we'll talk a little bit about what we've just shared in the last week. So we are an automated growth program for financial advisors. So we do marketing automation to multiple channels, but we also create all of our content in-house. So in a way, we're like a marketing technology program in combination with a marketing agency at just a fraction of the cost for advisors. And we've been exploding. I mean, in the last 4 years, we've really experienced a lot of growth. In 2020, we grew over 400% alone. Wow. So with that explosive growth, which has just been a crazy ride, we knew that although it wasn't absolutely necessary from a financial perspective, Tina, we knew we wanted to get more funding so we could continue to grow, we could integrate, we could deepen and improve our technology, put out more marketing. So the big announcement and the great news is that we did just secure Series A funding for $6 million. And this came through a partnership with FinTop Capital. They specialize in fintech. So we're stoked. I mean, the partnerships themselves, the partners are really awesome and great. And it's a great fit for us. So we felt blessed. And then the money is just, again, it's going to take us to the next level. So we're excited about it.
Yeah, like organically fintech companies like Snappy Kraken would get there anyway, because there has been organic growth. And I mean, there's been record organic growth for you guys. Equally as exciting is your origin story. And I would love for you to explain, Diana, your position at Snappy Kraken, because here's a company that I see not just one champion, right? We see many, many people. And I had the luxury of working with Snappy Kraken with T3 last year to help produce some of Joel Bruckenstein's with Marie Swift and her agency, those videos for T3. I'm so proud of them. We will link them to the show notes. Yes. But tell us about your work, because it's more than, it's a growing company. And I would love for listeners to understand your origin story, who you are and how you got there, because you're a fresh face in fintech.
Yes. So I'm trying to think in my brain, how far back can I go right now? But I actually stumbled upon Snappy Kraken because I was working for another fintech company at the time, Chalice Network. They actually acquired Succession Link. That's how I started in financial services. And we had a conference, and I remember just walking around trying to network. I work in sales, and I'll talk a little bit about my role at Snappy Kraken, but walking around a conference room and being like, who in the heck is this company? What is this big, crazy banner with this octopus? I got to know more about these people. This is so my vibe. I mean, I'm a millennial. We like fun things. We like just very flashy things and different, unique things. And it was so different from any other booth at that financial services conference. And I got to meet with the team, and I was like, I left that conference thinking, I really love my job where I'm at, but I really want to be part of Snappy Kraken. So ended up a few months later down the road, I had seen Robert Sophia post that they were hiring. And it was right around when they also had secured the last funding round, which was significantly smaller than what we've secured this time. And I knew I had to just jump right in. So I jumped right in, and it was not easy to get the job because there was a very thorough process for interviewing and applying. And part of that too is also sharing your why and sharing your story. Snappy Kraken cares more about culture and your dreams and your goals and where you come from more than any other company that I've ever worked for in my career. And that was really, really refreshing. So going back to like, where does Diana come from? I had a very interesting upbringing. I come from a Cuban American mother. She actually was born in Cuba. I'm first generation Cuban American. My father was born in Venezuela. So again, first generation for me is Cuban, Venezuelan American. But he passed away. And so my mom ended up raising 3 girls on her own.
Wow.
And that was a lot. Yeah, that was a lot. And long story short, my mom worked harder than any other person that I've ever known in my entire life. And for me, it just taught me this utmost like work ethic and drive and motivation to be able to support myself. And I thank her for that because it's stressful and there's many struggles we went through growing up. If I didn't go through that, Tina, I don't think I'd have the drive that I have today. And to work for a fast growing startup, you really need that kind of drive. You need to be resourceful, to think on your feet. And I feel blessed to have kind of that ingrained in me. And here I am just, all these years later, feeling so grateful to be part of Snappy Kraken. And, what I get to do at Snappy Kraken is just really rewarding.
So first of all, I'm really sorry about your dad too.
Oh, it's okay.
You're a millennial and to lose your dad at such an early age and just the struggles of just that alone earlier in your life really impact your life and your decisions. Where are you in the birth order? So you're one of 3 girls.
I'm the baby.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's really awesome.
And funny enough, I'm the baby. But I would say, and not to like toot my own horn, I'm the most responsible and I'm probably the most career oriented of my sisters. So it's almost like you grow up faster as the baby because you see what they're doing and you kind of learn from it in advance.
Sure. So very interesting. Cuban mother, Venezuelan father. I can see why your origin story would have been something that Snappy picked up on. And culture is everything. And what really was inspiring is that you work for a 100% remote company.
Yeah.
This was not a 100% remote company after coronavirus. Oh, no, ladies and gentlemen. This was a 100% remote company from day one, years before coronavirus. What keeps the culture together and glued in a remote environment? That I think every single financial advisor wants to know. Yes, what is it? Diana, can you tell me what should we be doing? What lessons could advisors take from the Snappy Kraken culture playbook? We'll get to the marketing playbook in a little bit, but what would you say to those advisors?
Honestly, it really takes communication and it takes being very empathetic. So all of our leaders at Snappy Kraken, they're always asking how we are. They're always asking what they can do to help us. And even if we're managers, like what can we do to help you lead better? Especially throughout 2020, it was beautiful to see every meeting that we had. It started off with, okay, everyone in the room is going to talk about how they're feeling today. Good, bad, ugly. And we all just sort of talk through it and support each other. So I really think it takes sort of that empathetic leadership to be able to run a remote company. Also, it takes trust. Obviously, when you've never run a remote company before and you think about, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be having a physical eye on all my employees all the time. At the bottom of at the end of the day, I should say, it doesn't matter if you don't have an eye on them at all the time because you have trust as long as they're getting their work done. If you see someone is not getting their work done, then okay, they're probably not using their time wisely as a remote worker, which can be a challenge. It's not easy. It took me a while to master that, but that is it. It's like if the productivity is there, if you're empathetic, especially through year like 2020 with a pandemic, it's not terribly difficult to run a remote company. And, Snappy Kraken was actually, again, you mentioned it. We started as a remote company. We were very passionate about that. So 2 of our co-founders, Tina, they were like digital nomads when they started Snappy Kraken. Our CMO, Angel Gonzalez, and our CTO, Bradley Delachey, they were Airbnb life, which is actually what I'm doing right now. So when they started the company, they said, this is what we want for everyone. We want to give our employees this type of freedom and this type of lifestyle that, hey, if you want to work from home or you want to work from an Airbnb, or maybe you want to go to a co-working space a couple days of the week, and that's a good balance for you and your mental health, then we want you to be able to do that. So that's part of the reasoning behind it. And we thrived through the pandemic. We thrived. It was hard, but we thrived. And that's because we built this business. Our founding team built this business to scale remotely. And we just feel so grateful that we weren't negatively impacted like, a lot of businesses were through the coronavirus because they had no idea what to do as a remote company.
Absolutely. When you mentioned this Airbnb lifestyle, which I find so fascinating. We just had Martine Lellis. We were talking about travel. We were talking about reverse mentoring. Were you at the time of coronavirus, were you also too working like this Airbnb lifestyle kind of where you are right now?
So actually, I wasn't. I was at the time still living in Miami. I had just moved into a 1-bedroom apartment after living with a roommate for a few years. I thought it was a good idea until the pandemic hit and you get a little bit lonely. But no, I was working from home. But that was for me actually the catalyst to deciding to just sell everything I had in Miami, all my furniture, got rid of my apartment and do the Airbnb life because I couldn't take being in one room anymore. It's like you do need to change up the scenery. And I was like, this is part of the reason why I was so attracted to working at this company. Mm-hmm. And I've always loved working remotely. I've been working remotely even since before Snappy Kraken. And why am I just, in one place all the time? So it was the catalyst for me. Yeah. So now I'm in Mexico City. This is my Airbnb here. I'm actually usually not this design oriented.
Oh, it's gorgeous. I was like, oh, it's so staged. It was like last year when we were at T3 Diana, like everything was perfect, right? Snappy comes in and the whole environment. And I was like, okay, did Snappy come in and outfit the set? And interestingly enough, for this episode, we are going to have some visuals and even some video. Thank you. Yeah. Kraken, big shout out.
I love it.
You'd mentioned something about output, right? And my generation this is how we were raised, Diana. The amount of time that you work equals your contribution and your value to the company. So the more hours that you work, the more amazing awesomeness that you must be bringing. And here's now that model has been flipped. I also too made the decision to go 100% virtually from the get. That was nearly 4 years ago. And here's what was the big aha moment. And again, we're millennials and Gen Zs like you are. And here's what I noticed. Like people are actually, number one, they're happy to come to work. They can't wait to come to work. They even say, hey, I have some extra time. Would you like me working on something? So I feel like morale is super, super high. And my daughter, Rachel, said this to me, and I would love to hear your take on this. One of her friends said, oh, Rachel, don't work for a 100% virtual company because it's much harder to form relationships with your other colleagues when you are remote. And I wanted to know, I have the answer for that, but I wanted to hear that from your perspective for employers that right now are wrestling with the idea of this even just a hybrid, forget about 100% work environment, right? How do millennials, and again, we're making a generalization, right? But how in general should people be managed today as far as like output and this whole idea that the bonds of business can't be formed in a virtual environment?
Well, that idea is not true, right? It's false because we've proven that at Snappy Kraken. So I've also, though, on the flip side, I have worked for a remote company where I did feel very disconnected from my coworkers. So this really just goes back to like how you structure your remote company. And of course, like there's the side of that which is management. So how do you manage a team remotely? But then also, how do you set them up for success to still coordinate and communicate and pass ideas and not get shut off. So it's twofold. And I'd say on the management side, even for me and my team, which by the way, I'm hiring, we're growing. So if you know anyone, let me know.
Okay, we're going to have a link in the show notes to those.
Okay.
Watch out. Okay, floodgates open. Here we go.
That's great. I don't measure how many hours you work. I actually have a rule with my teammates, and I say, look, if you need any less than 3 hours out of your day to go do something, to take a break, your kid needs you, that's fine with me. I don't even care that you take PTO. As long as you restructure your calendar so that you're catching up on that work, we're all good. And we measure our success by our productivity. We are very clear from the beginning what our goals are. And I don't set goals that are unrealistic. I set goals that are challenging, but still very realistic for my team. And so if we're hitting those goals and we're still allowed to manipulate our schedules and be there for our families if we absolutely have to, or be there for our own mental if we absolutely have to, without feeling so in the box of like, oh, I have to take PTO because I have to leave, which is what you typically get in a traditional office. We're just so much more productive and happier. Like, we all love it. Of course, there's got to be a little bit of a balance. So that's why I have that 3-hour rule. Tina, if you're going to go beyond 3 hours, then yeah, it's probably best that you take PTO. Definitely don't want to get in trouble with HR. But even then, it's like we have such a great benefits package because we can, when you're a remote company, you don't have all that overhead. You can pay your employees more. You can give them better benefits, and everyone is just a lot happier. And we're so much more flexible with our lives and work. So that work-life balance. On the side of actually like getting to communicate and connect with your coworkers, that is so, so important. Because a few other remote companies I have worked for in the past, it was like we had a chat and that was it. But there weren't like encouragements for team meetings, one-on-one coaching meetings. I have one-on-ones with every one of my teammates every single week. There wasn't a lot of like, we have a happy hour every month. We call it Snappy Hour, where the entire company gets together just to talk. We have channels in our Slack program for ideas and suggestions. We have a lot of, and it's not overkill, really. It's probably just the perfect amount, but individual one-on-one meetings, individual team meetings, and then we'll cross team meet as well every couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So that we're always just kind of circulating ideas. So I think if you can set something up like that, you'll be successful. Of course, if you have the funds, get together every quarter, have a retreat every quarter. COVID kind of knocked that out for us. We do have an annual retreat, but like departmentally, we will try and like get together every quarter, or at least, twice a year. And so I find if you have those things in place, you can be successful with it. It is not what they say that it is. As far as the negatives of remote work, it's never perfect, but you can really get it to where you want it to be. And everybody they love it. It's in favor of everyone.
They so do. They so do, Diana. You're so right about that. And here's the one thing, and I was glad that you had mentioned Slack. I think it was nearly impossible for me, being raised in a traditional environment and being a Gen Xer. One of the first things that I did is when we decided to go, when I formed C-Suite, is technology tools. I think it's impossible to have a remote company unless you have collaboration tools, whether or not that you have to have a Slack, you have to have like even Basecamp. So I feel like the tools are different. What would your thoughts be on that?
Yes, tools are everything in a remote company. And there can be such a scenario where there's too many tools too. So like you have to really look and see what your team's needs are and get them just the right amount of tools for that. We use Slack, which I am such a Slack fan. I just love Slack. We use Asana as well, which is, it's nice because it's all integrated with Slack. So if somebody pings me and says, hey, Diana, I think this would be a really good thing to put together, just with a click of a button, it's now an Asana task with the due date. And it's a reminder. We use G Suite. So Google Drive is important for us. We get to share spreadsheets and collateral, and everything's really well documented and everybody has access. We have a few like customer facing tools that even help us stay in communication with them. But internally, you can also communicate through them. So we have some CRMs. We're releasing a really cool customer success CRM called PlanHat. We use Intercom to live chat with our members. And then we kind of circulate comments and success stories with other team members through that same platform. So I would say those are going to be some of our top tools. We'd recommend them for XYZ. One that I love is called MindMeister. You can literally map out your entire department. You can map out an entire project. It's fabulous. So, and of course, Zoom for video meetings, that's an essential. Those are all the basics that really help us stay connected and productive in a remote environment.
I love that you just laid that out. Thank you so much, Diana, because again, this podcast is designed to deliver value to people, to business leaders of today. And you just gave them part of the playbook to orchestrate the business of now, which is technology, which is double downing on your people, on your culture, and your technology. And the big M word, marketing, that I want to get to right now, okay? Because, you know, here you help and you're on the front lines of a MarTech company that is growing by leaps and bounds. We had this major event called coronavirus pandemic that none of us really saw coming. And so what would you say in terms of the pandemic making its way to society and how that changed marketing? I mean, one of the things that I was really excited about was that marketing finally got the spotlight and the time and attention that it deserved.
Yes, absolutely did. That is true. I think it was the catalyst for people adopting digital marketing. So I want to answer this in two ways. I want to answer that directly as far as like, you know, what have we seen change in marketing and what do we expect to change in the upcoming year? And then also just me and my role at Snappy Kraken being on the front lines of our enterprise sales division, how that was just such a whirlwind through the pandemic because so many financial organizations were scrambling to find the right tools for digital marketing for their advisors. So let me start with marketing. So I would say the pandemic, it absolutely changed the world of marketing, how many people were adopting it. It changed a lot, marketing in general. At the same time, Tina, I would say its core principles, the core principles of marketing, they have not changed a bit. So, you know, we know that even before the pandemic, like it was so important for a financial advisor, and this applies to any industry, but it was so important for a financial advisor to be in contact with their clients, to communicate with their clients on an ongoing basis in a very meaningful way. Even for prospecting, like you always needed a strategy, but when we looked at what the pandemic did, it was like, there were advisors who did it really right, and there were advisors who did it really wrong. And the ones who did it wrong, they lost clients. And the ones who were doing it right, they gained a lot of clients. And that was awesome. And we got to help them. And we really see how that worked out. So we actually released 2 different products in 2020 on Snappy Kraken. Number one was a super timely email we would drop every 2 weeks. Our team was like up late writing an email the middle of the night so that anything that just came out that day was in the advisor's hands the next morning and they could pass it out to their clients. And we took these emails and we humanized them. And that was so important in 2020. And it still remains really important today as we're still in a, you know, somewhat of a socially distant lockdown world, is like, you've got to humanize your marketing. You've got to let them know, I know you're struggling. I'm struggling too. Like, let's level together. And advisors really appreciated this because their clients had amazing feedback. It grew those relationships. It sent them referrals. But then if we think about it, the advisors were struggling too. I mean, everyone was struggling in 2020. It was a ridiculously hard year for all of us. So for them to have a digital marketing partner that would take all that work out of their hands, that crucial, essential workflow that they needed to have implemented in their business and do it for them, it was beautiful. They really, really appreciated it. So we saw that, like, timely communication. That's what made you a successful advisor. We also released a video product, a video campaign where we wrote the script for the advisor. We knew, like, in this socially distant world, we really had to help them, like, you know, build some more credibility with clients and prospects. We knew that video was a really great way to do that. So those 2 products were heavily, heavily adopted. So I would say those things are still the basics, right? Those core principles that didn't change. You've got to communicate. You've got to get in front of clients and prospects. But what did change a bit is the way that you did it. So we see a few financial companies, unfortunately, being a little bit tone deaf in 2020, where, they're pushing out the same old financial content that maybe it used to perform somewhat well, but in 2020, it didn't have the right messaging. So really missed the mark of humanizing marketing. So what we'll see moving forward, Tina, is, again, digital marketing is being adopted more than ever. The pandemic was the catalyst for that. We're going to start to see advisors. We've seen it just at Snappy Kraken, but they're going to be adopting more tools. You don't need just one. There's a lot of great digital marketing tools out there. At the same time, from a fintech perspective, we'll be seeing a lot more financial technology companies coming out with marketing tools and programs for advisors. So I think that's cool. Again, you never need one tool. I'm as much of a raving fan as I am of Snappy Kraken, and I see how much of the journey we do take on for you. It's great for them to have multiple tools. So that was a lot. I'll stop there. And then I'd love to share with you a little bit about the financial company perspective and what we saw on the enterprise side.
Sure. So a few comments there. And that the number one reason why advisors lose clients is because of lack of communication. And that study that's been documented year over year over year. One of our clients uses Snappy Kraken. And so he said, Tina, I want to know how I'm doing. So from your perspective, so I'm like, hey, you are doing really great. And this is, again, a Gen X advisor who recognized the need that during coronavirus, he could have done a better job. So I would love for you to talk about the enterprise because, again, a lot of successful advisors are listening, a lot of successful business leaders who have been challenged by lack of content, lack of technology, lack of tools, lack of leadership. Let's give it to them. Let's serve it on a silver platter.
I can't wait. No, this is my favorite part right now because I could just scream this all at the mountaintop. So part of what I do at Snappy Kraken, I essentially head up our enterprise sales and partnerships division. And you have any of your listeners who also work in enterprise sales, they'll probably agree with what I'm about to say is that it's definitely can be the most rewarding, but yet equally the most challenging kind of sales position to hold. Because when you're working with big enterprises, especially ones that have just had archaic marketing systems in place, and I'm not afraid to say that, it's difficult to really help them understand the value. And usually it doesn't happen until enough of their advisors are banging on their door to say, hey, we really like Snappy Kraken. Can we use this? Why isn't this an enterprise solution for us? Until they really start to play ball with us. So, and that's normal. They take their time. They have due diligence. You got to get all the stakeholders on board. That can take 6 months, 12 months. I've worked a deal for 2 years that we recently just launched that I was really excited about. So it takes some time before we can start having fun. I would say there are some very top of the line financial organizations that really got it, and they got it quickly. And I'll just mention a few of them because we have a couple partnerships. So I would consider these more of our integrated partnerships. One of those being with Hightower. I know you just had Abby Solomon. Yep, I really adore Abby. Actually, her and I have some time set to chat next week. But you had her on your podcast, and what we got to do together was see where do your advisors need that marketing support. This is how we're going to roll out Snappy Kraken. Their instance is called Engage to your advisors and make sure it really fits their needs and goals. We have another, one of the largest IMOs in the country, Advisors Excel, is now rolling out Snappy Kraken, AE Digital, in just a few weeks. So that's been really rewarding. And you can tell it's the advisor excitement. It's just so alive. And it's because it's what they need to really take themselves to the next level now that we're such in a digital world. So we have other types of partnerships too, Tina. It's not just necessarily the super integrated ones. We've got referral relationships. We've got affiliate relationships. The general message there is that the smart enterprises that know that they need to bring the best in class technology to help their advisors grow their businesses are going to partner with a company like Snappy Kraken. It grows their credibility in their own partnerships as advisors to their own advisors. That's how they really earn the trust. And at the end of the day, we're all trying to grow our businesses. So I'd say where we see a little bit of slower movement, and not with all, because I'm going to share one exciting piece of news with you, but some of the slower movement I see in my role is when dealing with broker dealers. And I know a lot of them have been burned in the past with compliance and things get a little difficult. But part of my job is working with compliance teams in the broker dealer channel. So we can really get through and like help them get comfortable with our content and our processes and help them roll something like that out to their reps, because their reps are banging on the door for it. Excitingly enough, we have just formed a partnership. It hasn't fully launched yet. It's like in a pilot phase right now with LPL Financial. So
wow,
they get it. Yes, they get it. And they've been so, thank you. Thanks, Tina. That wasn't just me. I mean, Robert and the team, they've all been working on this since before I got to Snappy Kraken. So, but those are they're making the right decisions right now from an enterprise perspective. So, if you're leading an enterprise and you're listening to me right now, we have so much data to back up the type of growth that our enterprise partners experience through using Snappy Kraken. And if you don't have a best-in-class technology for your advisors when it comes to marketing, you've got to think quick, because those advisors will leave. And I've seen that happen many a times because we couldn't get Snappy Kraken approved. So I felt so compelled to share that.
What are we getting wrong as business owners, as entrepreneurs? How could we get more people, instead of a cold connection? How do we get people a part of our prospect ecosystem? How do we get them into our pipeline better than we're doing right now?
Yes, that's a great question. And I feel like whether you're an advisor or you're in any other industry, a lot of people look at marketing with, or I should say prospecting and filling a pipeline with a really single lens. I should just have one thing I do and that should be what fills my pipeline. Unfortunately, that is just not how it works. You have to have multiple approaches to driving massive awareness to your business, whether that be and there's so many channels just in this industry, but, media. So working with a company like you, Tina, or other companies in the space, interviews, podcasting, getting your name out there, your brand out there, whether that be buying leads from other companies that sell leads, that's definitely a thing. More commonly, some paid advertising. There's a lot of different channels right now that have some really good advertising capabilities. We use Facebook at Snappy Kraken. There's LinkedIn, there's YouTube. So it's really a combination of elements, right, to fill the pipeline. And unfortunately, we see people that just looking at one. And if that one thing is not working, they're giving up. But that one thing is only a sliver of all of what you could actually be getting. So if we think of this like a pie, it's just one piece. You should really have all the other pieces, and that's the full pie. That's how you fully drive your pipeline growth. Now, when you actually get that pipeline growth, Tina, that's where we also see people struggle, because you get a lead and then you don't really know what to do with it. And so it just stays cold. So it's how do you move it to something warm and then eventually gold, which for us is like a raving fan. It's a client at this point. Look at what your communication is in your marketing and ask yourself, is this fresh or different than what everyone else is doing? Is this image that I'm using stock? Did I just pull this right off the internet and so many other people are using it or already seen it? It's nothing fresh in the brain. Does this subject line evoke curiosity? So is it bold enough? Is it going to actually get someone who's scrolling on their phone and there's a million messages and notifications and ads and it's just a sea of just content? What is it that's going to get them to stop for my piece of content? So I'd say those are some really important things to think about, and look at your marketing. Just go back and look at everything and see if you can improve it.
Really, really cool advice. It's an integrated marketing plan. And it's one that invites some novelty. And that's where that whole transparency comes. I know it's been a word that's been overused so far in 2020 and even in 2021. We're obviously in 2021, but I think it was the catchphrase there, right? Should I show my background on Zoom, or should we have this really cool company background and authenticity and transparency? And I think that's the thing that invites novelty, is just showing an aspect of of who you really are. And I couldn't wait to dig into that with you, Diana, because now I've known you. Obviously, I'm getting to learn a lot about you before you came in the suite, and you have a fascinating background. I wanna just pull a little bit of that out because, and it is on your Twitter, it's very transparent. So here's your bio: VP of Enterprise Development at Snappy Kraken, salsa enthusiast, lover of ancestral foods, a doula, a proud Latina, women in sales and empowerment. And so I love this. I wanted to talk a little bit about being Latina in the industry. And I just wanted to just highlight, first, I want to celebrate it, that I think that now is the time that our industry has acknowledged diversity of inclusion on the ethnicity side as well as the gender. So what would you say to that? Talk to us about being a proud Latina and what that means in our industry.
Yeah. I'm so glad that we're touching on this because you're right. I'm definitely seeing a shift in the industry, and there are some incredible voices out there who are on the front lines of this shift. And that is refreshing because that wasn't the thing a few years ago. And so it's all still very fresh. But I feel I like to share this because let's say 10 years ago, I would have probably kept this at bay. It wouldn't have been anything I openly talked about. And now as I've gotten older, I've realized you have to be yourself because that's what people like. And if they don't, well, that's their problem. But being you, no one else can be you. So being unique is really, really important. So for me, it was like, especially in the world of sales, it's like, I can't tell you how many meetings I've been in where I'm just the only girl, definitely the only Latin person, Hispanic person. So it was like, I should fit in with these people. I've got to look the look and play the part and fit in. And I have to say, I'm also very grateful because my friends that are women and also people of color have way less advantage and privileges than I have had as a Latina woman. But even then we share that with like, even just being a woman, it's, do I fit in? And so you kind of have this like mental struggle and it gets to you and it starts like, maybe I feel uncomfortable. I feel different. Do these people even take me seriously? So as I've gotten older, like I said, Tina, I just realized like, share who you are. You've got to be proud of it. I feel so proud of where I come from because I come from a really hardworking family who they basically overcame anything that they had to overcome. And that for me is like, put that on your Twitter because people need to know I feel very proud of being Cuban, Venezuelan, American. And that's just part of my story.
And we celebrate you today, Diana Cabrices in the suite. Thank you so much for reminding us the important that our origin stories are things that we need to walk into a conference room, a board meeting, a podcast, a stage, and own that instead of thinking that, I've been guilty of the same thing that you are, kind of looking around and feeling intimidated and having that feeling in your stomach. So I'm so glad that you pulled that lesson out. What an incredible reminder of the power that we bring when we just acknowledge and we bring all of us to the table. Really awesomeness. There's another really incredible thing that I discovered about you, and that is that you are a doula. And so that might probably be a term that people listening to this episode right now, our wonderful audience in all of these cities and all of these countries. So I would love for you to explain what a doula is, how you even got started. That blew my mind.
It usually does. Most people, they're like, wait, what? You're like, you do like these enterprise sales and marketing tech and fintech, but you're like helping women give birth on the other side. Like, how does that even come together? And I'll talk a little bit about that too. But so doula, for any of you who are listening that have no idea what a doula is, and most people don't when I even tell them about, the fact I'm a doula. Doulas are a a very important part of any woman's birth team, because it takes a team for a woman in her birth experience. So you have your medical professional, which is like a doctor, an OBGYN, or a midwife. They're actually physically delivering the baby. You have the partner of the birthing woman, so usually her spouse, and then you have a doula. And the reason you have a doula is because through the 9 months of pregnancy, you're not always going to have a doctor. They're not always going to be on call for you. And usually they don't show up to actually help you birth until you're almost there. So you have you could be 2 days in labor without any support, right? So the doula is that person for you. They're always there for you. They're there for you in the birthing room if you want them to be. They're even there to support your partner. They teach you both how to breathe, how to do different positions for really better, smoother delivery. So it's a lot of mental, it's a lot of emotional, little bit of physical, like light massage, but usually you're having the partner do it. You're just instructing him or her like the best ways to go about it. And just that informational support. We do get training on some of the medical stuff, just so that when a doctor says, here's what we're going to do, and you don't feel confident in asking, well, what does that really mean? Can I evaluate this? You can go to the doula and just say, do you have any more information on this? And we pull research-backed, science-backed information and allow you to have more time to kind of soak it in and make those decisions. So that is high level what a doula is. It's definitely taken a little bit of a turn for doulas since the pandemic, because most hospitals are not letting them in anymore. But either way, you can be a doula on FaceTime. You can be a doula on Zoom. You can be a doula however you want. It's just about being that source of information and empowerment for women. So the reason I got into doing all this.
Yeah, this is so awesome. And mind you, I'm a woman that's given birth to 2 unbelievable kids.
Kudos to you.
And unfortunately, I did not have a doula in my life the way I should have, right? Again, this is a podcast in the suite. Pass out this information. Oh, quick question. Is the use of drugs predicated, obviously pain reliever drugs? Does that matter? Or a doula can it doesn't matter if it's what's natural, the word I'm looking for? Yeah, natural birth. I did not do the natural. I was okay. Please help me through this. So it doesn't matter. You could have a doula regardless then, right?
Regardless. The one thing that doulas are trained about is you never judge. And you can never judge a woman that decides to get an epidural. Right. Because, in the moment, I've seen how painful that birth can be. At the flip side, you try and help them learn really cool breathing techniques and things that they can do, even foods they can eat to help with the pain levels. But it's not a strict, if you're not having a natural birth, you can't have a doula. It can be any way. Yeah.
Okay. That's really interesting. And what about, this is again, just the curiosity in me. What about women now giving birth in pools and water? And have you seen that?
Yes, I have. I've seen it before. It is a beautiful experience. I would say every woman has a different level of comfort about having a water birth. If you're far from a hospital, you might be too scared to do it, and that's okay. No one's going to judge you. There are now also birthing centers that have doctors staff there, where you have a really serene environment with a water tub. So it's in the middle ground of a home birth with the water and a hospital birth. So there's a lot of those. So just FYI, but yeah, it's a beautiful experience, because if you think about it, and we don't have to go super deep, but when a baby's in the womb, it's in a sack of water. Yeah. So when it comes out into water, it's less stressful on the baby. It's a much more smoother transition. But either way, our babies are healthy and they're happy, even if they're coming out not in a water birth. And so where did the genesis of this come from? Yes. Okay. So I've had my own story with birth. I had a miscarriage years ago. And at the time, I didn't know anything about this stuff. I had no idea what was going on. I didn't understand. I remember the doctor at the time was super cold, and he was a male. And not that means you're cold, but I realize now how empowering it is to have a women team around you in birth. And not to say anything against male doctors. They're incredible. Right. But I felt very like in the dark, and it kind of scarred me a little bit. And so that was when the seed was planted for like, what should this experience really be like? What does all this stuff mean? Why did this happen in the first place? So I start digging. I learn a lot about like holistic health and wellness and fertility for women, and how our hormones work and cycle, and like, how each week we actually maybe should be eating different foods, and try to not schedule heavy meetings on this type of week, depending where you are in your cycle. It all gets really, really interesting. And so I just knew I wanted to take the plunge and just get trained as a doula. So I found an awesome course. I got trained through DONA. They're one of the top organizations. They're the original organization for doulas. And when I started going through that training, I was like, oh my gosh, this is part of my calling. And I still, like Tina, I still love fintech and marketing and helping advisors. I've been doing that for over 5 years and I love it. But there's this, and that's very rewarding for me. But like, I also get a lot of fulfillment from being that support to women, because I really believe like women, we got to support each other. That's what we're here for. Birth traditionally was with a group of women, your aunt, your sister, all the females in your family, they all got around you and they supported you. So the same applies to sales. I really want to help women in sales because I think we're innately just incredible top sales professionals because of our nurturing nature. We're super detailed and comforting, but then also in the birth room, like I feel that empowerment all the way across the board.
You've just helped so many people. Thank you very much for
I'm so glad.
Sorry about the miscarriage, and so many women
it's okay.
have gone through it. And I think, look at where your path is divine.
Yes.
And God bless you for all the work that you're doing that to support women. It is such an incredible journey. You do need that kind of support. I think you need it all the time. So the more women that we can have on our board of directors and in our lives to support each other is just better for all of us. It makes our lives healthier, happier, and richer. Hey, listeners, you can now text me at 201-581-3983 to join our text-based community in the suite. After you do that, I'll be lifting you up, inspiring you, and supercharging your life and your career with awesome quotes, resources, videos, and tips we learn from our great guests. It couldn't be any easier. Just text 201-581-3983 to join. So let's talk a little bit about some of the pieces of advice for our listeners. And it is this podcast is about helping people to do better, be better, myself included. Selfishly, I think that I tried to engineer a podcast to discuss modern themes in business. What would be your one piece of advice to help the women listening right now?
So I'll touch on just a point I just touched on there. So somebody that maybe is in my shoes or maybe is coming from where I came from is a woman, like just you have to know we are inherently top performers in the world of sales. And maybe you think, oh, well, I'm not made for sales. And that sounds grungy. And there's, you think of the typical salesman, snake salesman, and it's just not like that. Like we're so nurturing, we're so supportive, we're detailed, our personality shines. This is why we also have traditionally, especially back in the 70s, was like we primarily went into roles like teaching and nursing. It's that same type of like support and nurturing that makes us natural born sales leaders. And I wish somebody really helped me understand this 10 years ago. Either way, it came about and I stumbled into it, but had I known, it is such an empowering profession because you can make good money. And that is empowering. I mean, you've also got to love the product that you sell because that's the other piece that's got to be empowering for you. But if you come from like a single parent, low income household, and you want to be in a position where, you can support your family, right? For many of us, our parents are still living paycheck to paycheck, or they're not as financially savvy as we are. Sales is an incredible profession to get into. Aside from sales, though, I will say this, and this might sound really cliche, but I don't care because I didn't understand it until it really applied to me. But I have never gotten anything, and maybe I shouldn't use the word never, okay? Almost never gotten anything that I haven't asked for. Mm-hmm. So my advice is to speak up. Whether you're a woman or whether you're a man wherever you are in your life, in your career, don't be afraid to ask. And this is something I learned from my mom, because we were always asking for favors or discounts or things that could really help us just keep floating on the top and surviving. But I've asked for my own speaking opportunities. I've asked for the opportunity to be included in meetings with decision makers that I saw on my boss's calendar. I've asked for my promotions. I've asked for my raises. If you don't ask, you won't know. And the worst thing is that someone can say no to you, right? Like, and who cares if they do that? At least you asked. So if you're thinking about where you're headed in your next phase in your career or even your life, maybe it's love, maybe it's anything, right? Career, love, ask. Don't be afraid to speak up, because that's how you truly advance in your life. So again, as cliche as that sounds, it has worked for me and I will keep doing that.
Well, you'll be happy to know that it's, when was it? I think 11. Yes, I had a call from 10 to 11 and the conversation ended with, "Hey, Tina, is there anything I could do for you?" And you know what, Diana? I answered that and I said yes. And I asked for it. And I said, well, actually, and normally I would pass that by. So not cliche at all. The simplest thing that we should almost have tattooed on our arms every time that we have a decision maker that doesn't, or a conversation that doesn't even feel like sales. That's just, hey, with one of our colleagues, or we give so many things away for free. Women just, we give. And which is great. It's a wonderful, wonderful quality. However, asking for things will move us closer. That's our superpower. And that's the way that we get self-funded, right?
Yes. Yes, that's it.
Enterprises, right? And what enterprises do, they ask for funding. What should we do as women? And so we should ask for the things we want. So what's the best way for people to get in contact with you?
Yes. So the best way is going to be, we'll give you two ways here. If you're on Twitter, please connect with me on Twitter at Diana Cabrices. So Tina, maybe we could drop that in the show notes.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Because not everyone can spell my last name.
Well, you could spell it right now, please.
I'll spell it. So there's a trick to my last name. Diana is Diana, just think the princess. And then my last name, Cabrices, it's literally a cab, the word rice, and then an S. So Cab, Rice, S. Cabrices. That's the trick to spelling my name. So Twitter is a great platform, whether you want to talk about birth, whether you want to talk about fintech or marketing, or you're an advisor, would love to chat with you. Outside of that, though, if you're more of an email person, email me, Diana at snappykraken.com. We can chat there as well. And we'll also have to drop that one, but it's Snappy, SNAPPY, Kraken, KRAKEN.
Very, very cool. Okay. And our last question before we wrap up is, this year we're asking about book recommendations.
Okay.
And so can you give us your best book recommendation for 2021?
I feel like I need to give you two, because one side is going to be for my ladies listening to this, such an empowering book. And then the other is perhaps for enterprises or financial professionals that are really interested in some cool data that we put together at Snappy Kraken. So the first, Untamed by Glennon Doyle. I don't know if you've read it or not, Tina.
No, but you're the second person that just said it. And so I'm like, yes, I have to get it in to my Audible account. That's what's coming.
Yes,
that's
how I recommend it. Yep, right there. That's how I recommend it, because the author has an incredible voice. She's an amazing narrator, and that's a hit or miss for Audible for me. So I highly recommend doing Audible. Untamed by Glennon Doyle, the most empowering book I read in 2020. It gets me choked up. No, I'm just kidding.
Wow.
I'm kidding. I need water. And then on the other side is, if you're interested in really cool marketing insights, like what content is best performing right now, what type of strategies and tactics should you be using in your marketing as a financial professional, which channels are performing the best, you absolutely have to download Snappy Kraken's 2021 State of Digital Report. We combined about 40 million campaigns from 2020 alone that were launched on our program, and we just threw it all in a really cool report. So how can you get that? Super simple. Stateofdigital.report. Just type that into your URL bar.
Digital.report. I want that report. That's fantastic. Yes. I remember last year you put something out.
Yeah.
As a marketer, and even if you're not in marketing, if you're in sales, if you're in finance, if you're in finance, if you're in leadership, if you have an organization right now, I find that insight fascinating, because to see all of these campaigns for like multiple organizations, where I feel that now you all have the Snappy Kraken has the data set that can reach even just the single entrepreneur advisor right now who's listening. So that's really cool. Thank you for that. We appreciate that. I think at Snappy, especially Robert and Angel, and I look forward to seeing you all at T3. Where do we see you at the remainder of the year?
Yes. So it's funny. I have a lot of traveling going on even right now. I have to leave Mexico City tomorrow, unfortunately, because, fortunately, I get to go to a BD conference for the Strategic Financial Alliance. That's going to be in Asheville. The following week, I'll be at another partner BD conference, Peak Brokerage Services. They're awesome in Jupiter, Florida. But you will definitely see me at a lot of the conferences coming up later in the year. We've committed to T3. Actually, I'll have a breakout session at T3. I'm really excited about that. Tina, we've committed to Excel for Carson Group. Riscalize will be there. So many. So I will be at most of the conferences later this year. I'm actually really looking forward to it. 2 years ago, I was like, oh, I'm so tired during conference season. Now I'm like, I can't wait for conference season. So that's where you'll find me. And of course, after these next couple work trips, Tina, I might come back to Mexico City and just spend a few more months here. It's one of the coolest cities I've ever been to. I've traveled a lot. I've lived on different continents. This by far takes the cake. So anyone that's listening, if you haven't been to Mexico City, it's like a Manhattan and a Barcelona combined, but way cheaper. So you've got to make it out here eventually.
Thank you so much, Diana. What an inspiring, I can't wait to see you at the conferences.
I know.
I'll be at T3. I'll be at Riscalize. I'm hoping to make it to Ron's Excel conference as well, too. I'm starting to Mark and I are planning out the calendar right now.
Good.
So thank you so much. We really appreciate just you being here. I'm so grateful that we had this conversation. Thank you so much, Diana.
As am I, Tina. Thank you for having me. Thanks everyone who tuned in and listened. And I can't wait to see you soon in the near future.
You're listening to In the Suite, a podcast that shares amazing stories of women in business in the financial services and the wealth management industry. Our producers are Tina Powell and Kevin Hirshorn. Our editor-at-large is Kevin Hirshorn. Our content writers are Dimple Rashandani, Sarah Smirker, and Tina Powell. Our research and technical assistants are Rachel Powell and Sarah Smirker. In the Suite podcast is sponsored by C-Suite Social Media, a digital marketing and social media agency for C-Suite leaders and companies in finance and technology. You can visit csuitesocialmedia.com to learn more. And thank you so much for listening and subscribing and giving us 5-star reviews. We are so grateful to you. We've got listeners in 721 cities and 42 countries. This podcast was inspired by you and created for you, ladies. So please let us know how you enjoyed this episode with the amazing Diana Cabrices, and share your thoughts on LinkedIn and Twitter, #InTheSuite. You can connect with her on LinkedIn. You can follow Snappy Kraken, SnappyKraken, and visit www.snappykraken to learn more. And always, if you would like to share the name of a rock star woman in financial services we should interview in 2022, please send it to me at tina@inthesuitepodcast.com. Again, thank you so much for listening and subscribing to In the Suite.